Part 2. Yeah, the crowd liked it. Sorry, I had a bit of an issue with memory for my laptop for a second. So this is part 2 to this.
This is for everybody else as well. Let me just take a couple more points. I mean, I didn't want to stop because I know you feel so strong. Let me take a couple more points, and then I'm gonna move on. Yes, the woman in the blue and white shirt with the specs on. Yeah.
Yeah. I think you might have a very short memory to when the Iraq War, that wasn't our war, got involved, and that was a Labour government that brought us into that war, and we lost thousands of our army in that war. So I think you have a very short memory regarding that.
Okay.
That's...
Man here in the red suit.
What? I'm sorry, what was the point? What was the point in that? Like, yeah, we know that happened. What? Like, that was just needless. That was... I've heard that being used as an argument before. Legitimately, that was not a legitimate point of argument here. That was just like, oh, Labour did this. Like, yeah. And many of us within Labour that do think that was a bad decision. What's your point? The fuck?
Hi. And I think that October the 7th was awful, but two wrongs don't make a right. So, like, I think something has to be done. And I totally agree that Israel should be defending themselves, but come on, it's been going on for that long. And just like you're saying, there's so many people died there, innocent people.
Okay. Now, I'm going to draw this to a close, not because it's not something that is worth...
This is, like, I don't get this. I don't understand what the point of that was.
Talking about, it absolutely is. But I know, sadly, I'm pretty sure we'll be coming back to it. So I'm going to draw this to a close for now and take another question from Þrimilcemōnaþ.
Stoke-on-Trent was awarded 56 million in 2021 to help with levelling up. It's now summer 2024, and all I've seen is a multi-storey car park flattened and another one has been built. When will we see some levelling up in Stoke-on-Trent?
We had lots of questions about this. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
We had a lot of questions about this, as we did last time we were in Stoke-on-Trent, I remember. It was Chris Philp, your colleague, who was on that day. So, yes, Stoke-on-Trent was awarded 56 million in 2021. 34 million of that hasn't been spent so far. Here we are in 2024. Nigel, I'm obviously going to come to you, but Humphrey, I just want to come to you. I mean, you grew up in Staffordshire.
Yeah.
I know you've got a couple of gyms here in Stoke. Levelling up benefits?
Well, as I look around the country as a whole, and I travel around the country, Stoke-on-Trent and elsewhere, it's clear that we need significant amounts of investment to bring greater vibrancy.
So that's another one, right? I keep being asked, where's Labour going to get this funding from? Well, the Tories have used fuck all of the Levelling Up Fund. Like...
Restore some of the former sort of grandeur that great cities like Stoke-on-Trent and across the Midlands and the north of England have. So, we need to see much more of that. I remember some rather fine car parks in Stoke-on-Trent from my youth, I think, but I think you want more than car parks from that. I think you want civic spaces, you want environmental improvement. But here I think we face one of the challenges that government has. I mean, I spend my life rolling things out in our business across the country, opening new sites, and the discipline and follow through. I can't imagine having a plan to spend £56 million and 3 years later only having spent about 20 of it. If we had a plan to spend £56 million, we would have done it and we would have put it to good use. I think one of the great challenges for government in general is maintaining the momentum of getting things doing. And I very much hope that we'll see Stoke-on-Trent benefiting from that money, because that money, it's a great city. It was a great city to be a part of when I lived in South Staffordshire and we used to come here regularly. So I hope that will be seen here in the future.
So, Nigel, let me come to you. I mean, This is a refrain that we often hear on Question Time in the sort of red wall towns and cities particularly. I mean, for example, in Stoke, and you can correct me if I've got this wrong, there were plans for a £70 million, huge 3,600-seater arena. There's a big development called the Truston Square, isn't it? You'll be familiar with it. That's been shelved because it was too expensive. Then there were plans for a car park, £20 million. Gosh, they're expensive, aren't they? That has been shelved too. There has been another car park built. I mean, there have been some other things, but the feeling I'm getting from lots of the questions that were submitted by you is where's all the benefit going? They're not seeing it.
Yeah, look, and these things take time. There's no doubt about it. But I don't think there's any doubt. And I've spoken to.
You've had 14 years. Someone shouted that.
Your three MPs here, Jonathan, Jack, and Joe, about this as well, who are great champions of Stoke. And look, you did have, and you have had, not only levelling up funds, but Transformation Cities Fund, Heritage Action Zones funds, and all sorts of other things. These things don't happen overnight. They do take time. You mentioned that 30-something has not been spent yet, but lots of it is in process. I think literally just around the corner from here, the old goods yard, that is in progress, that is visible, that is happening. And there's other projects as well, Spode site in Longton, other initiatives, the Kids Grove initiatives, the sports centre there as well, which was closed by the Labour Council in 2017. That's now been reopened, refurbished.
Why was it closed in 2017?
Because of the money. So yes, I get the frustration if you're not seeing it. But levelling up is real, it is happening, it is important because you need it. Because the reality is, as many of you know, Labour took you for granted for too long. They just took your votes for granted and thought you're going to vote for them anyway. And it's not the case. It's really, really important that we invest in areas like Stoke and other areas right across the country.
I think you probably don't need to tell them that it's really important to invest.
I know,
I think they know that already.
14 years. And now they're going, oh, but we're going to invest. You have 14 years.
But some of it, I mean, even by the very nature of the question, it's like 20-something million has already been spent and is being invested, and most of the other projects are in progress. But it does take time. It doesn't happen overnight. That's what levelling up is all about. It is a long-term transition, changing the whole nature and distribution of the UK economy so that other parts of the country, other than the southeast and London, can generate economic activity as well. And if you look at the stats around here as well, you, for all your hard work, have done a great job. The dynamic nature of the local economy, how unemployment has more than halved since 2010. In fact, 800 jobs a day have been generated across the country since we've been in power. All of these things are important. Levelling up is part of that process, along with a whole host of other things. But I get the frustration, but I can tell you your MPs are laser focused on making sure that they deliver. The council has a role as well here, and are not always helpful in terms of speeding things along. But it's really important we keep going because it is needed. It's needed in Stoke and it's needed in other parts of the country.
Well, let's hear from the good people of Stoke who are here. Yes, in your fabulous red necklace. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Fiona. I just wanted to say we almost nearly got an HS2 as well. I'd just like to say now that that project's been scrapped, who in the government is going to be held accountable for that? And for the people who had a compulsory purchase order on their premises, that then now I walk past them every time I do my 10,000 steps every evening, that are now going derelict. So who's going to be accountable to that in your party?
Well, a lot of that money has been reallocated and a specific amount has been allocated to Stoke and also in other areas. Well, there's potholes, there's bursts, there's other transport systems as well, because again, that is needed. And I was an advocate for HS2, but I recognise that actually the ROI, the return on investment, didn't stack up, and there were alternative ways of spending that money.
The ROI didn't stack up because of the way you fucking did it, you retard.
Penny of HS2 money will be reinvested, and it will be spread again in the Midlands and the North in a very effective way where those projects will happen. But again, I get the frustration.
All right, too little, too late, you're saying. The man in the blue shirt.
When we talk about levelling up, we talked about the arena, we talk about car parks. There's loads of derelict land around Stoke-on-Trent, and why it's taking time, I understand that, but we've still got veterans and people living on our streets with no accommodation.
Yeah.
And the man further back, you've also got a blue shirt with glasses, yeah.
I'm sorry. Half of what you said doesn't make sense. You said, you started off with Stoke, and you said that 20 million have not been used in about 3 years. Okay, and then you went about saying what the Tories have been done. We've given Boris a chance, he lied. We gave Liz a chance. She trashed the economy. Now we've got an unelected prime minister, and we just want a general election, and we want it now, please.
Boom. Yes, please. That man got it bang on. General election, please.
Lisa, the people here want to see levelling up benefits. Easier to talk about than to deliver. Is this something Labour can genuinely do?
Yes, we can, but you've got to be serious about what levelling up is. It isn't little pots of cash handed out for leisure centres and car parks, things that are cooked up in Whitehall by people hundreds of miles away who've never set foot in the communities where we're somehow supposed to be grateful for these small gifts back. And it isn't the contrick of taking millions of pounds away from councils and then handing a small amount back and telling people that they should applaud the government for doing so. What it is a long-term plan to get good jobs back into communities across the country again. I represent Wigan. It's a former mining town, and we are immensely proud of the contribution that we make to the world. And last time I was here in Stoke, I was left in absolutely no doubt that you feel the same about the ceramics industry and have seen far too many jobs offshored in recent years. If we want to repair our high streets, if we want to reboot our economies, we've got to get money back into people's pockets, and that means good jobs in every part of the country. And for me, this is just a basic question of respect. Just as it's disrespectful to tour the country handing out little pots of cash for things we never asked for and we wouldn't have spent it on either, denying our local leaders the chance to make those decisions with their communities. Just as it's disrespectful to do that, it's also disrespectful to write off the contribution that we've got to make to our national economy in every part of the country. You won't find many people in Wigan who want to reopen the coal mines and want that future for their kids, but we're proud of that contribution. And what we want now is the investment to get the clean energy jobs that rely on the same engineering skills that we've still got in abundance in my town in order to power us through the future and help us make that contribution again. So for us, levelling up is about respect for the priorities that people have, devolving powers to local leaders to be able to have control over their
More talk about devolution of powers. I'm liking that.
own local economies and the way that their own money is spent. It's your money, not ours,
Some of these are
and you should be spent it. And an industrial strategy to get money back into, to get good jobs back into communities.
Councils applying for specific things to spend the money on.
Well, councils are forced to bid into a pot of central government funding, and one of the
for specific things in many instances.
for specific things that come with government criteria attached. And if you want to know why most of that money that was promised to Stoke hasn't been allocated, it's because of two things. It's because this stringent criteria that was attached to those projects meant they had to be delivered by 2024. What did we think was going to happen in 2024? A general election. So lots of the projects that councils wanted to do weren't eligible. But it's also because of two words, Liz Truss. Because when she disastrously crashed the economy, the cost of all these projects went through the roof. And many of them that communities have spent years putting together were no longer viable.
Lisa,
if there was ever a sign that it is time for change, levelling up are the two words that tell you
Lisa,
that this
I'm
is
sorry, there's two things here. First of all, and in response to some comments you made earlier on, criticising Jeremy Corbyn, you did serve under his shadow team, and Keir Starmer actually also, of course,
playing the Jeremy Corbyn card.
So try not to take so much distance. And secondly, every single Labour government, as you know, has ended up with unemployment higher at the end.
That's bullshit.
Than they started. So I wouldn't go lecturing on crashing the economy. You do that every time you're in government.
Actual bullshit. He's actually bullshitting his arse off right now.
Without exception.
He hasn't got a proper argument. So just quickly chuck out the bullshit.
Be very careful about trashing other people's economic record.
Let me let Grace in, because I want to get one more question. So, Grace.
Sure. So, look, we are one of the most regionally unequal economies in all OECD, all advanced economies. And that has real-world implications. And it's not just about, car parks or whatever else we've been talking about. The gap in healthy life expectancy between a girl born in one of the poorest regions in the UK, the poorest areas of the UK, and the richest is 20 years. For boys, it's 19 years. So if you're, a little girl born in a poor area, you're going to have 20 years less of a healthy life than someone born in the richest parts of the country. And that requires investment to change. The thing I'm really excited about, actually, and this is something that has been going on for a long time, and indeed since before Keir Starmer became leader, is this thing called the Preston model. And this is something that Matthew Brown is trying in Preston Council, and it's called the Community Wealth Building Agenda. And what that recognises is that people need, money, local areas need money to get things done, but they also need power. And that doesn't just mean power going to cities and local authorities, it means power to communities. So the Community Wealth Building Agenda is basically saying, how do we use the local budget to boost jobs, to raise wages? How do we align all the public institutions to make sure that our procurement budgets are being used to the best effect? Can we do things like create local banks? Can we support the cooperatives in our area? This is like real grassroots democracy. And it's something I'm really excited about. And I want to see commitments from everyone, actually, to say this should be bread and butter for everyone, for Labour, for the Conservatives.
Yeah. At least Andy seems to be well on board with this one.
Hand power back to people, because people are angry at feeling disempowered at the centralisation
This would actually work under the devolution plans too.
Our democracy.
Okay. We have got about 8 minutes left, which is far too short a time to deal with the next question in great detail, but I want to try and get a bit of it, so I'm going to give you about 30 seconds each. Okay, Steve Morris, where are you?
With the NHS waiting lists at over 7.5 million, should there be a hybrid scheme between the NHS and private funding on a similar basis to, say, the Australian Medicare system?
So Australia, where quite a few of our doctors seem to be going in recent times. So they have a combination, Australia, of government funding and private health insurance. It basically have a hypothecated tax, a tax specifically for healthcare and private insurance as well. You could talk about this at great length. Very briefly, Nigel.
Very briefly. Look, the model we've got in the UK is, I think, a fairly well-established and accepted one. And there's a reason why we're all, genuinely all, proud of the NHS, because it's free at the point of use. And that is an established principle that I don't think any major political party is proposing to move from. It doesn't mean to say, though, that there can't be a role for the private sector in the NHS. In fact, there was under Labour governments. They increased it a lot. And there will be under ours, and there is under ours as well. But in terms of, productivity and expenditure, I do think it's important to remember that things are improving.
But the way that you guys have used private is just made things worse.
This are coming down. The strikes didn't help. 1.3 million.
Not in the last month.
You were the guys that put things to the point where there were strikes in the first place. You fucking cunt.
And the waiting lists are about the same.
Waiting lists have gone down now for 6 months in a row.
No, the waiting list this month, the figures came out today, as you know, are about the same as last month.
The waiting
Are you disputing that?
My understanding is the waiting list has been coming down now for 6 months, and also the long-term.
It's about the same as it was last month, but okay.
But I think it's important that we focus on inputs and outputs in the NHS. And I say currently it's about £160 billion. That's up about a third, £40 billion in real terms since we came in. But there's increasing demands on the NHS. We need to increase the productivity in the NHS as well. There's all sorts of things, but we're all
Humphrey, should there be a hybrid scheme? Other countries have. There are other countries. Europe have it. Denmark has it, for example. Healthcare is funded by taxation, but you can also take out an insurance system as well.
And as you may know, we have a substantial business in Denmark, so I see that operating on a day-to-day basis. I have some personal experience and exposure to this. One of my sons is a doctor up in Blackburn, and I see the remarkable work that he and his colleagues do with and for the NHS. But in direct answer to your question, I find it hard to see how we won't have to not just accept, but embrace some evolution of the NHS for it to be able to serve you, me, and all of us in the way we'd want to be served by health.
It's true, everything evolves, but it depends on how it evolves.
Healthcare in this country over time, and there's one very important piece within this that often gets hidden, is I think, and I see this directly with my son, I think the way, because the NHS is a monopoly employer, the only way you can qualify as a doctor in the UK is with the NHS. The first 20 years of your career, you effectively have to spend within the NHS. That means that some of the terms and conditions, and to be quite honest, the pay that our nurses and our doctors get is simply not good enough and not enough to stop them from going to Australia, as you said, Fiona, and to stop
So you think a hybrid system would resolve that?
And I think if you create a hybrid system that involves other paths to qualification, we can increase the number of nurses and doctors, and we'll be able to improve their conditions, and more people will stay.
I'm only rushing you because we haven't got much time. So Lisa, according to the Office of Budget Responsibility, in 2024-25, the government expects to spend over 40% of its day-to-day spending on the NHS. Is that sustainable?
Well, it depends what you're spending the money on, and one of the problems that I see.
40%, is that?
One of the problems.
It depends on what the money's spent on.
In any way?
Well, look, I believe in an NHS free at the point of use, and that's what you can expect to see under Labour. But I go into my local hospital regularly. I was in there a couple of days ago. One of the biggest problems that we've got is that we've got lots of people who are currently stuck in hospital. They go into hospital often because they can't get a GP appointment, and then they can't come out because they can't get social care. So if you're serious about reforming and supporting the NHS, we need GPs to modernise. We need them to be offering appointments at times that people can get them. We need a cross-party commission on social care to take the politics out of it, which has sunk those reforms over and over again. And we've all got to come together and sign up to solve that problem. And we need to expand the workforce because, it's right to mention pay. It's absolutely right to say that for many nurses, doctors and auxiliary staff, porters, cleaners, they've seen real terms pay cuts. But every single time I go into my local hospital, what people are really talking about is the workload pressures and the fact that they didn't come in to the profession in order to just treat people at the end of life. They want to save their lives. So we've got to get serious about doing that, and we've got a plan to do it.
Okay, Lisa, I'm sorry to cut you off. So, Grace, to that point in terms of staff, so the NHS in England employs 1.7 million people, 1 in 17 of all workers in England. And it's estimated, according to the NHS own long-term workforce plan, in another 10 years, we're going to need 2.5 million staff with the NHS system we've got. Do you think we should stick with it?
Look, if you want to bring down costs in the NHS, invest in prevention, invest in social care, invest in public health, stop people from getting sick before they get there. There's a small number of people who are suffering from some really complex and difficult problems who have fallen through the net, quite frankly, because of austerity, because of cuts to social care and the systems that are supposed to catch them early. And that is unforgivable. So we need investment if we want to actually cut down costs over the long term.
But stick with the same system.
Well, yes. And one thing I want to end on is that there's a paper published in The Lancet, so the most kind of prestigious medical journal in the UK, that found that greater involvement of private companies in the NHS corresponded with more people dying of treatable causes. I'll end on that.
Okay, I don't know about the report, so I have no idea if you're quoting that correctly or not. The man in the glasses in the check shirt,
Nigel, I think it's rich you can say about the amount you're investing at this point. If you wanted to invest, you would have done it over 14 years, not just now. The levels you're putting in are not appropriate to the amount of damage that has been done.
There's more doctors, nurses and investment in NHS than ever before. It's been increasing over the last 14 years.
Lived experience of people in the NHS is not what you're saying it is, and that's what people are suffering with.
Okay, I'm going to get round the audience, forgive me, because I've given you all quite a bit of time. The woman in the pink check shirt,
Yeah, I'd like to ask Nigel, you say about the waiting lists have dropped by for the year and the 6 months. How many people on those waiting lists have died whilst waiting for operations and treatment? Is that why the waiting list has dropped down? Because they waited that long?
Look, as I said, there's more services, there's more people being treated by the NHS than ever before. It's really important that we do fund it. We have been funding it. I say it's at the heart of all major parties' policies. And by the way, the Labour Party is not proposing any additional spending, despite what they may be trying to suggest this evening. So it's really important that we focus on inputs and outputs.
Yes, you've made that point. The woman in the red dress there.
I'm a clinical pharmacist, and we need more transparency. There are some treatments that are just not available on the NHS, and people have an expectation when they go to hospital that they're going to get treated with all treatments available to them. They're not. There's a budget, and the budget is spent, and people need to understand that if you have a certain condition, there will be a range of treatments available to you, but that might not be what the whole range of treatments that's available to you. And my dad died of bowel cancer. He was not eligible on the NHS for the medication that he thankfully had private medical insurance. He could have that treatment because his company gave him private. But we had no idea that he gets cancer, he goes to hospital, and actually you can't have that treatment because the NHS isn't funding it.
Well, I'm glad he did get treatment, and thank you for telling us about that.
Should have got
Sorry,
that
folks.
treatment.
Our hour is up. I'm really sorry. We had to
Right,
really rush.
okay. That's the end of that. I'm sorry this has been cut into two. I had a weird thing pop up that ended my last video saying that I was out of memory. I wasn't, but okay. I have to have a look at that. So it's been two-parter. Yeah. The argument between Grace Blakely and Lisa Nandy was quite fun. Both made good points, I think. There is a point to be made about the fact that Starmer defended Israel's position and made it sound like he supported the cutting off of, water, electricity and food and such to Gaza. And the fact that it took him 8 days, 9 days, whatever it was, to clarify his statement was really not good. It's not been great, but from what I gather, Labour do back the stopping of arms sales if the legal advice is that Israel is committing war crimes, breaking international law, which I already think they are. That they already are. They already have been breaking international law. So yeah. Oh, this has been this was quite a good episode actually of BBC Question Time. I have to admit, there was quite a lot of digging at the Tory MP Nigel Huddleston, and I gotta admit that Lisa Nandy, I regret voting for her as leader. Like that was a bit of a. I'm glad no one really pinned her on it, like, but that was a bit of a gaffe. That was a bit of a gaffe. I'm sure I heard her say what she said, and that was a bit of a gaffe. Oh dear. So yeah, no, this was good. Like a nice bit of back and forth between Blakely and Nandy there, but there also seemed to be a fair bit of like what Grace was saying. Nandy was actually agreeing with. So like across the different subjects. So like I feel this was a pretty good episode. Like, I think the people the Tory voters in the audience there are like, yeah, I think they're regretting their vote for the Tories at the last election in Stoke-on-Trent. So yeah. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this. Let me know what you think. Please like, subscribe, and please like, subscribe, and let me know for ideas on. Let me know if you let me know if you guys want a video on constitution for the UK, a written constitution for the UK, and we'll have like a gander into what could be done about that. All right. So yeah, it's been one angry pagan, Shadow Eater. I hope you guys stay well. Blessed those saying, God will see you. My shield at your backs, guys. In a visuals.